Well, Lane Kiffin, not shy about comments, and had a recent article written in a magazine, I believe it was Vanity Fair, talking about a number of things. But when the topic came up about recruiting at Ole Miss, um, he certainly, whether he intended to or not, I think knowing Lane, he probably did, um, took shots at recruiting at Ole Miss and the difficulty of uh, dealing with recruiting at Ole Miss with the idea of the Confederate flag and the rebel name. Um, I want to have make some comments on a few things. One, I do think that in the modern era, we'd be foolish to think that a lot of programs in the South, at least coaches in other part of the country, will use that as a negative. And it's not just Ole Miss; it's other Southern schools. Fair, unfair perception, you know, reality, two different things, but perception sometimes reality. That's what's done in recruiting very often. I do think that Ole Miss is uh, like anybody else. They had success recruiting under Lane Kiffin because Lane put together an infrastructure with the people there that they were able to pay quite a bit of money um, to have success, and they did. Um, that's what really matters at this point. Um, I don't think they're any different on the Ole Miss folks and scouted there, and they're good of people as you're going to find in anywhere else, and they do a really good job. I will say that when I was coaching at LSU back in the '80s, um, there were probably more issues then. Not that they're not some of those racial issues that are talked about today, because they are, and then we all know that it still exists in some areas and in some situations. But I know that if you go back to the history of LSU and Ole Miss, they were elite programs in the '50s. Ole Miss had an elite program under Johnny Vaught, and look, had some really good teams in the early '70s. Um, Ole Miss dropped off. LSU, they had their lulls too, but LSU was consistently better, and then obviously built their program to where it's an elite level. Where Ole Miss has never gotten to the elite level. They got as far as they did under Lane Kiffin, um, but not championship level, competing for a national championship level. They've never done it. And I always believe that one of the differences is that there was a perception of LSU and Ole Miss, like most of the places in the South, that Ole Miss seemed to be a little bit behind at that time at maybe accepting the the African American athlete. The entire SEC was, but of the SEC schools, they were one of those that just kind of hung on. LSU kind of moved on. The campus in Baton Rouge has and always has been socially very tight to Southern University, the largest historical black college, and that a lot of players, even when it wasn't quite socially the best place in Baton Rouge, in North Baton Rouge around Southern, it was always very accommodating and very popular. Now, I think the modern era has completely changed for all these programs. But I always felt like that Ole Miss, perception wise, because of the rebel name and the Confederate flag, I thought they did have obstacles. I thought every coach had some obstacles there to some degree. I know it because I heard it. I heard it on recruiting trails. I heard people saying that. People saying, I don't want you to go there, meaning their sons to go there, or grandparents to go there. Particularly now, it's more grandparents. I think as we get through generations, that's getting less and less. But if you go into an age of, say, grandparents, there absolutely is a lot of that perception um, that you don't want to go there. And Oxford, if you haven't been there, is a beautiful place, great school. I mean, it's one of the just great treasures visiting there. But there's a perception there, particularly amongst grandparents' age and of athletes. So I think it certainly has hurt them. I think in terms of what Lane was able to do was quite a bit different, and was able to sell the modern era. And I do think that that at LSU he's taken a different um, to a different level because there's more money, there are more resources at LSU. And so I think that the championship level program is more attainable, which is why he left. But I thought it was interesting that he brought it up. I'm not quite sure why he did. It certainly he doesn't have any many friends left in Oxford at this point, and he's not making them going forward. But just some thoughts as he this came out recently, and I wanted to give some perspective to how I think things have changed over the years, but how I do think that it hurt Ole Miss in the late '60s, early '70s. Once Johnny left and Archie left, and I thought it certainly hurt that program from a recruiting standpoint. But if you look at it more than anything else in the modern age, it's going to be about what can you offer, opportunities, and look, it's something that you have to address head on. This was something when I was coaching at LSU that was addressed. We were accused, well, you don't have a black quarterback, you don't have a black center. Those things were brought up. We had to address those things and talk about. No, that's not true. Look at what we do have. Look at what we do. So it's something that you have to address constantly. Your critics in recruiting, and sure, Ole Miss will do fine. But that is some thoughts. I wanted to get your thoughts on everything. Hit that subscribe button if you would. Help keep this podcast free. We appreciate you joining us. Check us out at LandryFootball.com for more detailed football breakdowns. The college of the programs, we got you covered right there. Thanks again. Spread the word. Appreciate you joining us. Have a great one, everybody.